No, thank you so much for staying with the Monday Report Town Hall session. I see a lot of your feedback here. Let me try and read some of them really quick before I get to your videos. Susan Okongo, who's a teacher herself, says, imagine I have to handle over 60 kids while a parent back at home is not even able to sacrifice just an hour to handle their own kid. I need to continue from where the parent has stopped. The parent should enhance on discipline I have instilled on their child, but not baba their kids. Most parents have let us down, especially after the long COVID-19 break. We have Charles Bungela Wazalendo says, we need regular prayers in schools and homes. We are lost as a society, and Kenya is a very sinful nation. From Tabu Charles, that's the chairperson, Bungela Wazalendo. There's a lot of feedback also coming here on Twitter. Let me see if I can sample some of them really fast before we get into your videos. Lempana Simpao says, some of us need boarding schools due to the nature of our jobs. Mudhoni Uko, please be considerate. Okay. Mboya Jr. says, how does a teacher impact knowledge to a student without values and discipline? How do we even separate the three and pride in the fact that our schools are centers of excellence? The three must and can only go together and concurrently. All right, let's see another one here. You call yourself Sir Aaron, says Janet Mudhoni is talking about other methods of punishing odd behaviors in schools. Which ones are they? And when we wake up to reality, I only know of prison as the only method. Do you want your child in prison? I'll let you respond to that because they directly mentioned your name. Janet.
Oh, awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think two respondents there.
Yeah.
And one of them first began by saying that they need boarding schools because, you know, because of the nature of their job. Yes, there are exceptions, yeah. But what you're saying is in Africa, Kenya is the most boardingized secondary school subsector, if I'm to use that word, in the entire Africa. Yeah. So that tells you there's something that we are not doing right. And then again, thinking about the thing that government exists for the public.
Yeah.
You know, government does not make decisions for the minority. Government makes decisions that favor the majority. So the decision that favors the majority in our country is such that boarding schools are not serving us the purpose that they're supposed to serve the purpose. Yeah. And I am sure many parents would not feel like this if there was a school, say the level of Pangani girls, as the day school that we are encouraging you to take their children. I am sure most parents in Kenya would opt to take their children to that boarding school. But because our government has overdeveloped some certain schools at the expense of others, even those that have taken their children to boarding secondary schools, it is not because of choice. Okay. It is because they have no option. Government has overinvested only in boarding schools. So I think it's an issue that because there are too many children there and the quality of services is not being improved. That is one thing. And also the whole logic of cost. Yeah. If government is telling us today that education is free, where is the justification about paying 53,000 in fees coming from? So Kenyans need to know that is a big lie about free secondary schooling if the government is not making steps towards making sure that a lot of schools are good quality and they are day schools so that everybody can afford. And about alternative ways of discipline is why we are advocating for strong guidance and counseling, sectors in schools so that parents as well as teachers can have these kinds of discussions that we are talking about. Sometimes when a child makes a mistake, it is not caning only. You could just want to understand where that child is coming from. A lot of them, I'm receiving a lot of text from parents, and parents are saying, these are the same children who left home knowing that dad and mom lost their jobs. So even the money that I came with here was borrowed money. And those are the same children that know the struggles at home. So by the time they get to school, there are the underlying issues. So that some of the things that you are seeing or some of the reactions that you're seeing, the child is exhibiting probably needs you as a teacher to understand that child, where they are coming from, and you could probably be able to advise them better. Okay. But you see, as Zomboko puts it here, which teacher has all that nature of time to understand an entire 1,300 children? And the answer is no, that teachers do not have that nature of time, neither do they have that kind of capacity built in them so that then they can be able to administer all this guidance and counseling. So there is a whole question about how have our teachers been enabled by government to help society in dealing with a lot of these issues.
Okay. Omboko, you know what I'm struggling with here? Say for example, we go with the solution you're offering of phasing out the boarding schools. How do you deal then with the rift that it will most likely going to create? For example, if people are in a different place and then there's a perception created that people from that region are smarter than people from other regions, because then the schools will basically be localized. It's just the people from around there who will be going to those schools. How do you deal with that perception?
Very well.
Yeah.
Before I just come to that, let me flag out the parent who talked about the church. The church is very important. Religion is very important. Sunday school is very important for the students. And also flag out the parent who talked about the number of students within the schools, within the class, and within the dormitories, and the fact that only one teacher or two teachers. Ordinarily in a school, no, I'm a teacher, 100%. Ordinarily on duty are just two teachers, and there's 1,200 students boarders. Managing them is almost impossible, and that's a very, very serious gap. In fact, that's why sometimes we talk about remuneration of the teachers. Remember, this is the same teacher who is not very, very well remunerated, and he's a watchman. He's supposed to discipline. He's a doctor. He's also a banker. When they have any little money, he's the one who keeps. So the teacher is also the chaplain in the school. But if we did break away from the boarding section, we would have an area of people meeting the children. The children would attend Sunday school and church at home. They would meet the local chaplain who would instill certain values into them. They would meet the parent. That's another player, instilling the same values. They would meet the teacher. And they also would meet role models outside there. And that would be good for the student. So I would flag out the fact that the work given to teachers is too much to especially manage the boarding section. And that's why majority of the unrest we have in the schools, and check on your log, you'll notice that they are boarding schools. The problem is in the boarding section. The problem is not in the tuition section. It is in the boarding. We have to deal with the boarding section. Unless we do that, we may not go very far. But back to what you asked me, that how do we deal with localization of education? Education has certain national goals, and one of them was to promote national cohesion and national unity. I think that's what you were asking me. But there are many other ways in which we can promote national unity. And there are also many other institutions that would bring these students together, because we have the basic education. We have, in basic, we have the ECD. At the ECD, everybody is localized because you learn within your area most of the times. The primary is the same. So we only begin bringing up the issue of that goal of developing national unity using education at the second schools. And that's where we have the boarding schools. Oko has told you, the boarding schools are just carrying about 30% or even less of the students. The rest of the students are in the day schools. But they are still very nationalized. That ideal goal of education was developed in 1963 and 64. That's the Ominde Commission, but has been carried all along to date. I think where we have reached, we have done so much in terms of nationalization, and we can actually just move the level of using schools, second schools, for achieving national unity to the tertiary institutions now. Which will still do very well. The universities.
And I think we are placing a lot of burden on some sections of education. Why would we spend all this? Why would we burden the sector so much to nationalize students, only for you to get to a university where the entire administration and all the staff belong to one ethnic community? So why were we doing all this for 4 years to these children, only for them to go to learn to a university where everybody else, from the vice chancellor to the sweeper, belongs to one community? Why are we doing that? What justification? Where are we coming from? So I think we really are not very clear on some of the things, the responsibilities that we are placing on the sector, and we are overburdening a sector that whose sole responsibility is to nurture a child's full potential. Full stop.
Omboko, you're finishing it.
No, Janet, tell them. You are telling them correctly, because we are overburdening the high school teacher with the issue of national goals. But look, the universities themselves are so tribal, like she has just mentioned. And when they go there, they now realize that there was no need of even being told that you are a nationalist, because they are an institution that are so tribalized. And many speakers have spoken on this, including Wakili Lumumba, on how our universities are operating. And therefore, I think the issue of schools just playing the role of promoting national unity has been emphasized at the level of secondary schools. Yeah. This can be realized at tertiary level, university levels, and other levels of interaction. Okay. And the world is now undergoing a revolution of IT, and therefore the issue of national cohesion can be achieved through that.
Okay. Let me run some of the videos that are coming through, so many of them. Let's see if we can squeeze in, because we just have about 10 minutes left. Let's listen to what you're saying.
Corporal punishment should be reinstated in schools, but of course not the military-like ones, not those ones that kill our children. No, those punishments that have been agreed upon by all the stakeholders, that is the students themselves, the teachers, and the parents, just like how it used to be in our times.
Corporal punishment should be brought back in schools, because since it was removed from the law because of the children's rights and all that stuff, there's a lot of negative impact that has come with it. Children are becoming disciplined, while the parents, on the other hand, don't do anything about it. They've literally left the children or rather the students or the pupils for the teachers back at school.
Trevor, if you want to celebrate the current candidates, the current students in our schools in future, let the caning be introduced without any hesitation. Please, let us save our country by doing the correct thing.
I'm advocating for caning of kids in school, and I really would appreciate if parents are allowed to bring their kids to school, and when the kids arrive in school, they're supposed to sign a document to allow them to be caned, a document that will bind the school and take responsibility and give a particular teacher or a particular department for caning. Parents who don't accept the terms and conditions of schools, they should go back with their kids.
I think corporal punishment is an iron to the Kenyan society now, as many students like freedom, and in many schools teachers are at risk of being caned, just the way Mboko has explained it there. Kindly find a mechanism of controlling it, not by use of cane.
All right, Mboko, there's so much reactions here, and I'd like to hear from you. J. Juma says, why ban boarding schools? So if students start banning homes, will we also ban the family setup? Let's fix the morals and culture first. That's what they're saying. What is your reaction to that?
No, it's not that if you can ban dormitories, then you'll ban homes. Within the dormitories we call mob psychology. I was taught child psychology as a teacher. Yeah. So that one just builds when they are together. But if you separate them into different homes, the way they will deal with those homes is so different. And the way they'll behave is different.
Okay. I see we still have some views here. Let's see. Peter Deuri says, no, if the society is rotten, expect rotten kids. It's simple. Gigo, garbage in, garbage out. Parents should prepare their kids for school. All right. Alex Owiti says the issues our kids are facing today are a reflection of the society. Our value system have equally eroded over time, and parents have dropped the ball. Teachers can't play the parental role. Let's wake up and deal with our value systems from home. Let's see what else you're saying here. Kecheza says indiscipline is a mental issue that requires a mental solution type of strategy. You cannot use a physical solution of caning for such and expect it to work. Let's see. Susie Yego says children need counseling, not caning.
Yeah. Counseling is very important, and we need to mainstream counseling in the schools. The people who are doing counseling in schools are not counselors. They are teachers who have gone through very short-term workshops for counseling. The Teacher Service Commission, the Ministry of Education, needs to actually now mainstream counseling in schools, and that department be handled by professional counselors, or certain teachers go for serious training to become counselors, and then a remuneration be attached to it. Thank you.
Kiprotich Aaron Chirchir says it should be reintroduced. There was high level of discipline back in our school days, I think because of that very cane. All right. Let's see, Abdi here says it's not necessary to introduce corporal punishment in schools because some teachers will take advantage of caning students brutally for no reason, just because in the name of committed a fault, advice is enough to the students, or get a suspension for a week. And let's talk about that suspension issue, Janet, because CS Mago is suggesting that when a student has been expelled, they should not be readmitted in any other school. Is this a strategy that would help?
Yes, and I sort of agree with him, because also to our students, there's one part of the narrative that has been sold to them so much, the rights narrative. But the responsibility narrative is never quite sold to them. And at what point do children understand that, you know, the consequences of their actions? What are the consequences of their actions? Because at times, the punishment has been that, for example, if a child sneaks out, then they are told to come with XYZ number of rolls of barbed wire and so on. But you see, that punishment is not to the child, because at the end of the day, it is a parent that will buy the rolls. So I think also it's targeting, so that at what point does the child get to appreciate that there are consequences to what I do? And I find that a little bit effective, because I have dealt with two that have been suspended from certain schools, and you could see the pain in them when their parents are really looking for schools here, and they are told, no, we cannot admit you because the policy of the Ministry of Education is such that you have to obtain a letter of clearance from the school that you came from. So I think it is important, and we really support the CS in wanting to make sure that some of these children also get to feel the responsibility. Okay. But also, there's a certain level of indiscipline that is criminal. We are not going to run away from the fact that we have children who are criminals. Okay. How do we process children that are criminals? What happened to the approved school, you know, correctional facility, sort of a thing? Because we can't run away from the fact that there are children that are doing hard drugs. You know, there are children that would even harm other children. So that link between, you know, in fact, I want to say that that has not been developed absolutely by the Ministry of Education. And I want them to challenge us in terms of what investment has the Ministry of Education done to cater for the children that are going to be criminals. Because it doesn't mean that because you're a criminal, your right to education is taken away from you. Okay. So what is the government doing to make sure that there is room to separate the children that go overboard, but still they are given room to pursue their right to education, so that they do not really intoxicate the rest, and we do not brand all children as bad children. The thing is that there is one or two children that really require different treatment, and even if we are saying about counseling, counseling really is not 100% situation. Let's be very honest. Okay. There are children that will not work with counseling. They need a different sort of treatment, such as maybe that approved level of school, where they're given a little bit harder, because it is not right for you to say that you want to ban a dormitory, and the only thing you want us to do to you is to cancel you and to understand that you come from a tormented background. I think there's a level of responsibility that we have to call on our children, including some of the things that you hear the DCI saying. Please know, when you come out as a criminal, that will make sure that you do not have certificate of good conduct, and that will inconvenience your life forever. So it's sort of a discussion of bringing the responsibility now that the children bear to the fore.
I'll give you guys a minute each for closing remarks on this conversation. We've really run out of time, and I'll start with you, Mboko.
I think I flag out what Janet has said. The approved schools, the correctional centers for youths must be revived so that they deal with students who go overboard. I think as we close this discussion, that's a very serious point. But as I conclude, I want to say that the cane is not a recipe for indiscipline in our schools. The society has really changed. The child of now is in the 21st century. He's not the child of 1964. He's not me, he's not you. And the impact of the cane will just harden the child and will make the child even not be good. So therefore, let's look at other ways in which we can use to actually correct the child. The teacher of today is a very different teacher. If you tell them to just go and cane students, they might not be very, very enthusiastic about it, because many parents and many players in the sector seem to think that teachers are very proud to be caning and will be very happy that the cane has been brought back. No. We may even ask for a caning allowance. Take care.
Caning allowance,
Thank you, Trevor. I think moving forward, we would want to see government developing further the concept of approved schools, so that we have that facility. I think it's a discussion that we need to have with the Ministry of Education. And two, we need the Ministry of Education to give us a strategy of deboardingizing the education sector? Can we, as much as possible, try and make very good quality boarding schools so that we give our parents choices? Because as it is now, parents have no choices. Even those that want to take their children to day secondary schools, they have then to pay for private institutions. Why would you pay hard, your taxes so hard, only for you not to access publicly funded education? So I think in terms of the leadership we want to see, we do not want to see lamentations saying that we want to ban the cane. The cane is not a solution. Can we discuss real issues? We want to see approved school being developed. We want to see what you're doing in decongesting and really addressing the grievances that are there, and also a strategy to develop fully the guidance and counseling sectors at school level.
All right. Indi Mulikahi, the Kenya Secondary School Heads Association chairman, is saying that we need to develop regulations to operationalize the Children's Act. And number 2, we must come up with a common code of conduct in school. You see, Godfrey at Singer says Ministry of Education should streamline counseling in schools by bringing on board trained personnel, because mostly it's done by teachers who are not counselors. And then we see Simon Koechu says, how do you censor corporal punishment? How do you draw a line when punishing a child? What if that child being punished is even innocent? And lastly here, I see Shiko Kihika, who's the founder of Tribeless Youth, says there's a thin line between instilling fear and instilling discipline. We must start listening to the problems kids go through. And until schools are friendly enough and not set up like prisons, then kids will always protest. Times have changed. I want to thank my guests for making time this evening. Omboko Milemba, Chairperson KUPPET, which is the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, and Janet Mudoni Ouko, CEC Education, Nairobi County. And mostly thank you for this contribution. It's a conversation that we'll keep having until we get a solution. All right, that's it from me. And then on behalf of the entire team that made this possible, we appreciate you staying with us. Thank you so much. Have a great night. My name is Trevor Ombija.